if in fact the idea of this ordinance is to in fact correct ills, to correct ills of the redevelopment agency, the designation of developers, and the ability to have a pay-to-play on elected officials, I find it somewhat confusing because of the 7 members of the redevelopment agency, 5 of them are non-elected, and 2 are elected officials appointed by the mayor, so that if in fact this legislation is effective to create designation of developers by the redevelopment agency, it doesn't do anything because you have 5 members who are not guided by this piece of legislation. I also agree with Joanne. I don't believe it's a technicality that in fact we're basing the judgment on. The redevelopment agency is a separate autonomous agency. That in fact, when I was there, Peter, Stephen, whatever, we were commissioners who happened to be elected officials. But the point was that the agency declared who their executive director was, they voted on issues, so they are an autonomous agency. I don't believe it's legally correct for this governing body to tell that governing body that what they can and cannot do. And I think that was the gist of what you were indicating, right, Joanne? And finally, and I'll say this on Wednesday, and the fact of it is that pay-to-play probably gets more ink than the real issues in our communities, which is homelessness and crime and all of those other issues. But having said that, the reality of this whole thing is very clear that in fact there was a statement made by Mr. Harwood in the paper of which I found a lot of truth in it. Granted, they said Mr. Harwood does not live in Jersey City, and he doesn't vote on elected offices in Jersey City. However, and I'll go back to the fact that in Mr. Harwood's case, Mr. Harwood has put his money where his mouth is. He has put up hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that in fact he has put into our city, Jersey City. Okay? And I honestly believe that he has the right to donate to a campaign legally under the guidelines of pay-to-play to the candidate that he feels is going to run the city of Jersey City correctly and protect his investment.
Can I just say 2 things? Number one, Councilman Dunn, I agree with you. That in a lot of states, in a lot of instances, I agree with you, but the ordinance touches on that the redevelopment commissioners, many of them are appointed by us over here, first and foremost. So there is a direct link over there. The director of the redevelopment agency is appointed by the mayor. So,
and that's not true.
Well, it's appointed by He's elected by the board.
He's elected. So it's elected by the board.
Okay. Selected by the board. Okay. Selected by the board. Fine. So I just wanted to say that there's a link over there. And yeah. Okay.
I'm saying, Stephen, I want to get competitive. We're friends. My point is that the executive director works for the commission.
I understand.
So if the executive director makes a recommendation and said, I want to do so-and-so for a particular project, the commissioners have the right to vote in deference to what the executive director said.
And the commissioners are appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. So there is a direct link over there. This does take that into consideration. What we're asking for is a first reading. It's not going to be law after the first reading on Wednesday. There's no reason to vote it down. We have 2 weeks to go through all the legal interaction between the lawyers from the Citizens Campaign and our corporate counsel. And I think there's no downside to voting it through for a first reading.
Mike?
I just want to say one thing. I don't see the necessity of this. Sorry. I'll be going off to the redevelopment board shortly, which means that if somebody don't contribute $300 or $500 to me, that's my 30 pieces of silver, according to you. You may think that's a terrible thing to say about any of us sitting here at the table. I think we all have a lot more integrity than the perception that you seem to think this is. The only perception is it's great press. That's even more than perception. But, I could care less who contributes to my campaign. I'll take their money, and if I like their project, I'll vote yes. If I don't like that project, I'll vote no. I'm sure that a couple of developers that I cost an awful lot of money, when I have a fundraiser to be sure, will buy some tickets. And, if I was them, I'd shoot them in the head rather than contributing $300 to my campaign. I mean, there are limits to what the hell I can give you.
And you know what? That's the irony of this whole thing, is that we referenced Lowell Harwood, who's never given me a penny, and yet his project, as Councilman Gorhan said, is the single largest project in Journal Square to resuscitate it. And there are plenty of other people in Jersey City who have not contributed to other people and who wind up either appearing before the redevelopment agency or someone else. The other thing is that when Mayor Healy was elected, there are still people on that board who are not appointed by him. And these are people who carry overs, and they have a voice of their own. And there's never been an instance, you know, I read about the days of Frank Hague all the way down to Bobby Januszewski. None of them had anything to do with Jersey City's redevelopment agency.
I just wanted to say to Councilman Salamano that this doesn't apply to everybody. I didn't accuse anybody of anything, and I wouldn't say I know, and I think highly of you. If there are people that don't have the same moral standing and integrity that you do, that's for sure. Well, we're not going to get into that right now. But you know, at the end of the day, this is not. Let's understand the fact, and let's not misconstrue what this is. It's not a blanket ban on developers giving money. What it does is, during the set time period of negotiation with the redevelopment agency, for that time period, it said that they shouldn't give, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. If you are negotiating what could potentially be a no-bid designation or not competitive bid, what's wrong with saying, let's remove the perception of impropriety and say that, look, you shouldn't be giving money to any elected officials during that time period. It doesn't apply to every single developer. It doesn't apply for the entire 4 years that you're here. There's really no good reason not to enact this. It really isn't. I mean, Council President Mariano Vega, for you to say in the paper that, to me, right, that the reason I want to is because of personal wealth or whatever it is, because I can raise money outside, then basically what you're saying to me is that the only way that you can raise money is by soliciting it during this redevelopment project. So I'll flip around what you said, and that's the exact reason that this is going to be in place. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I'm asking for a first reading, vote on that, let's move it to the second reading, and let's see where it goes.
It seems to me that the executive director of the league municipalities has the same opinion. He had no vested interest in what happens in Jersey City. Even more, he felt, and his opinion was stated, and it was quoted in the mayor's letter as well, indicating that what you're doing is you're making the Corzines, the Bloombergs, types of folks that make some big bucks be the only people to run for public office.
Council President Mariano, it doesn't prohibit contributions for 4 years, only when you are in negotiation with the redevelopment. So that is a flawed argument. And I ran outside the organization, okay? And I will tell you, I couldn't raise a dime because nobody gives money to people who aren't. They, generally speaking, the rule of thumb is the contributions come to the people who are sitting in these seats. It's a wrong argument because you will allow other people to get more involved. What I'm saying is, let's just do things on the up and ups. When they're in negotiation, don't give money. That's it. It's the right thing to do. First read.
Let me ask you a simple question on that. You had a fundraiser before you ran, and you had a fundraiser last year. Did other people give you money that didn't give you money before you ran? I'm just saying.
Did other people, have people given, have contributions, have I been able to raise money afterwards? I didn't able to raise anything before. It was self-funded, my campaign, predominantly, except for friends and family. You know?
So the answer would be what?
So the answer would be that based on relationships, yes, I've raised money elsewhere, and I've been upfront about that. But like, look, at the end of the day, look, I'm going to believe in the Ronald Reagan theory over here that it's not unilateral disarmament. You know, it's everybody on the same playing field. Let's say, okay, these are the rules, and we're going to go with these set of rules. I'm not going to say, look, I'm going to sit here and get, you know, my brains bashed in letters to the editors and this and that, and not have the opportunity. It's not fair to think that way. What I'm saying is, let's set a better standard. Let's raise the bar. First reading on Wednesday. There is no downside. We have a difference of opinion. We have a state superior court, and we have our corporate counsel, who is very respected. Difference of opinion. Let's see where it goes.
You just said you accepted money, and you had the ability to raise money after you were elected.
Correct.
So you're basically sitting here saying that now that you've accepted money and you sit here, it's okay because you are of a higher moral standard than everyone else here, because you were able to accept that money and it has no impact on you, but it has a negative impact on everyone else here.
Second reading ordinances, any questions?